This is an Artilect War, the worst war that humanity's ever had. What's at stake? Well, us, human beings, the human species. Human level intelligence, machine level intelligence. As that IQ gap, as they call it, as that gap seriously closes, then the species dominance debate, in other words, should humanity build, I call them artilects, that's artificial intellect, that's a godlike, massively intelligent machine. Now for some people that would be like a religion. Human beings serving as like the stepping stone up the ladder of evolution to create these godlike creatures. If we have this horrible war that I'm predicting is coming later this century, and you're talking 21st century weapons, so I use the concept giga, that just means a billion, Gigadeath.
When will that happen, do you think?
Within 10, that kind of time frame, 10 years.
Is there any reason the AI would keep us around? They take us out in the back and just get rid of us.
As a human, when I do this, or I go on a walk along the forest path and I kill ants, I don't give a damn. I'm so superior to them. Why would they care about us if they're just so superior to us?
Yeah.
We're just nothing to them. I'm glad I'm alive now. I don't want to see it. But now, it's looking as though it's going to happen. I will see it. I just don't see a way out. I'm being intellectually honest, and I hate to say it, and it just tears me apart, but I just don't see it as avoidable.
The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs. Sharing our vulnerability. Overcoming our fears. Transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is... This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Professor Hugo de Garis, the artificial intelligence expert and author. You are known for your work on the use of genetic algorithms to evolve artificial neural networks that you believe would enable the creation of artificial brains which would quickly surpass human levels of intelligence. You've published over 100 academic papers on the emergence of AI and robotics and the potential implications of these technologies on society. Your groundbreaking book, The Artilect War, explores the potential consequences of a future conflict between humans and artificial intelligence that would result in billions of deaths before the end of the 21st century. You believe that there is a strong possibility that AI systems will simply eliminate the human race, something we will be powerless to stop. You have said that the coming decades will see species dominance become the major talking point on the planet, leading to assassinations of political leaders and scientists as a major war threatens the future of humanity. Professor, welcome back to London Real.
Well, thank you, Brian. I'm very grateful for you're giving me a platform. This message that an Artilect War and the worst war that humanity's ever had, for the simple reason that the stake, 20th century wars were largely between nation states. And so what was at stake? Well, the survival of a country. But this one, if there's a major war later 21st century, what's at stake? Well, us, human beings, the human species. So the stake has never been so high. So the passion level in the debate, should humanity build these godlike creatures or not, will never be so high. And you're talking 21st century weapons. So I use the concept giga, that just means a billion, Gigadeath. Because if you ask the question, how many people died for political reasons in the 20th century? 300 million, that kind of thing. 2 world wars, ethnic cleansings, purges, and so forth. So about 300 million. Well, you only have to multiply by a small number, right? 3 to get it over 1 billion. So if we have this horrible war that I'm predicting is coming, later this century, then it's highly likely it'll be over the 1 billion mark. And that is utterly depressing. I get depressed. I'm glad I'm alive now, right? So, and the tragic thing about it is, I've been thinking about this on and off for decades, literally.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer. Last time you asked me, how can we avoid this situation? And like just literally yesterday, I was talking to the director of the Centre of the Future of Intelligence, CFI, in Cambridge University. He asked me the same question. Didn't have an answer. I just don't see an obvious way out. I just see this, as artificial intelligence keeps increasing, this is almost my logo, right? Human level intelligence, machine level intelligence. As that IQ gap, as they call it, as that gap seriously closes, then the species dominance debate, in other words, should humanity build, I call them artilects, that's artificial intellect, and that's a godlike, massively intelligent machine. Now, for some people, that would be like a religion. Human beings serving as like the stepping stone up the ladder of evolution to create these godlike creatures. A religion. And on the other hand, well, if I were a Terran, then I'm using technical terms here. So I see humanity in the next few decades or so. I see humanity splitting at least 2, maybe 3 major ways. So I need to introduce a few labels here. So those people in favor of building these godlike creatures, I call them Cosmists. That's Cosmists, yeah. Based on the word cosmos, because that's their perspective, right? There's a whole universe out there. So, and the other group opposed, bitterly opposed, because there's so much at stake, the very survival of the human species, call them Terrans, as in terra, like terra firma, the earth, because that's their perspective, looking inward. And there's a third group, represented a bit physically like this. They want to do this. They want to add components to their own brains and become Artilect gods themselves,
right.
Transitioning away from being human to an Artilect.
Like a cyborg or a
cyborg.
transhuman
Exactly.
or a cyborg?
A cyborg,
right.
a cybernetic organism, right. Part machine, part human. And so they're the 3 major groups that I see. Now, as that IQ gap closes, the species dominance debate inevitably will heat up, and it's doing that right now.
Yes.
It's very topical now.
Yes.
But as that gap seriously starts closing, then everyone will be wondering about, are we, the human species, are we going to allow these machines to become smarter than us? Isn't that dangerous?
Yeah.
And if they become a lot smarter than us, isn't that extremely dangerous? So I'm predicting the so-called Terran politicians. Put yourself in the shoes of a Terran politician, maybe even at a global level, planetary level, and ask yourself, what risk would you allow that these machines might, for whatever reason, decide to get rid of the human species, like seeing the human species as a pest? What risk would be tolerable? 1 in a million? 1 in a billion? I think given that so much is at stake, like the survival of the human species, I think these Terran politicians, the answer to that question would be 0.
Right. 0.
Because there's too much at stake.
Right.
But if you're a Terran politician, and on the other hand, you've got these Cosmist guys who passionately are pushing for the creation of these godlike creatures. Right. There's a whole universe out there.
Former colleagues of yours building these things.
Yeah, and to be honest, I'm very ambivalent about this. Like I have at home, I have these big screens, like 8K, and I'll watch like universe. Lots. Each little pinprick of white is a whole galaxy, right? So the deep field kind of photos, and I get this kind of space consciousness, cosmic consciousness, right. And I think, oh my God, there's a whole universe out there. This is the big picture, the truly big picture. This is the destiny of the human species. We've got to get out there. And then you start looking at these fabulous numbers like, what's the diameter of the observable universe? And then the answer is about 93 billion light years. How many galaxies in that huge volume? 2 trillion.
Wow.
And then you think, well, our solar system, what are we, 4.6 billion years old? That's exactly a third of the age of the universe, which is 13.8. 3 times 4.6, 13.8. So most of the stars and galaxies out there are billions of years older than we are. And nearly all of these stars have planets, maybe not a tenth of them. Water is liquid, blah, blah, blah. So very likely the biological type creatures who are intelligent, conscious, blah, blah, have come into being and maybe have moved on the way humanity's starting to do, moving away from biological to artilectual, the Artilect. So maybe this transition has happened many, many times. But I really believe this issue, should humanity build Artilects, will absolutely dominate our global politics this century. Like the way 19th and 20th century, what was the philosophical question that dominated then? Well, I'd say, who should own capital? The communist capitalist dichotomy.
Yeah.
So
and this will be all about who builds the Artilects or who doesn't. Now, what's your you? Are you a Terran or a Cosmist? You spent decades at the highest levels of artificial intelligence. You worked with Ben Goertzel in China. You guys were in this documentary, Singularity or Bust. You know all of these scientists. First of all, are the AI scientists predominantly Cosmists who want to build these godlike creatures? And are you as well, or do you change your mind every day?
Depends what day it is. I mean, I was talking about the big screens and this cosmic consciousness. And when I watch or read cosmology and so on, because I'm a math, physics, computing sort of guy, then that this vision, this cosmic vision, is very strong. It's a very powerful ideology. We humanity, we could build gods. So that's sort of like Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
Right.
And other times I'll be sitting in the park. Now I'm into my 4th quarter century of life. I'm old, right? I'm 76 now. So I'll sit in the park and I'm watching these gorgeous little 2-year-olds, and thinking, and my grandpa Jesus going thump, 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 thump. And then I'll have this horrible thought. If there's an Artilect War and it's going to kill billions of people, 21st century weapons, the worst war humanity's ever known, because the stake has never been so high, right. then all these gorgeous little...
Yeah.
And then I'm Terran, so I'm torn. And it's not just me. Like, I've been talking about this for ages, and often I'll ask the audience that I'm talking to vote. And initially, typically, and I keep it simple, no real complication. I'd ask, look, are you in your heart, are you more Terran or Cosmist? Do you want to build these godlike creatures, or do you want them banned? So keep it simple, dichotomy. And typically the answer would be like 40-60, 60-40, 50-50, and so on. And then I had the thought, probably that's just because the issue is so new, people don't really have an opinion about it yet. So they're just voting randomly. So of course you're getting more or less 50-50. But then after a while, people would come up to me and say, "Oh, Hugo, or Professor de Garis, I feel," the person who came up to me, "I feel so torn about this. On the one hand, the whole universe, it's magnificent, etc. But on the other hand, the whole concept of Gigadeath and Artilect War, that is horrible." Yeah. So I'm very ambivalent about this. In some ways, I feel if humanity does not build these godlike creatures, I see that as a cosmic tragedy.
Right, because we won't go into space. without building these
we're
things.
stuck. We're stuck
here.
And from a Cosmist viewpoint, I mean, you're looking at human beings, and you're thinking these pathetic little human beings snuffed out in 80 years in a universe that's billions of years old, right? There's real passion behind the Cosmist viewpoint. And on the other hand, of course, I mean, World War II was horrific. What, 50 to 100 million people killed? That was the most horrible tragedy in the 20th century. But that will be chicken feed in comparison to this really big one, if it comes to that.
Right.
And if you're a Terran, you're going to look upon a Cosmist as a monster.
Right.
Because what's this Cosmist prepared to do? He's prepared to risk that the whole human species gets wiped out because of the creation of his obsession, building these godlike creatures.
Just because he's obsessed to build a better mousetrap, and that's it. And now he's willing to kill all of us.
The whole vision, right?
Yeah.
So are you going to freeze humanity at our current pathetic, very finite mortal state? 80 years? That's nothing. So there's passions both ways, and as the issue becomes more and more current with people, I just see the passions rising and rising. And this talking about before, human level intelligence, machine level intelligence. As that IQ gap closes, then the passion levels will really come out. Then you'll start seeing as in your introduction, you'll start seeing the assassinations, the sabotages, the murders of CEOs of brain-building companies and so forth.
When will that happen, do you think?
Well,
in terms of years from today, because when we spoke before, I think you had said, Brian, I thought I was going to die before I saw this happen. And then when the ChatGPT moment happened, I think in December of last year, you said, oh my gosh, I might live to see it.
Yeah. So I'm wondering when ChatGPT 5 will come out. I'm now thinking.
Posts the other day on Reddit, AGI achieved internally is what he wrote on OpenAI, and then he wrote back later, I was just joking. But he wrote AGI.
Was he joking?
Exactly. And then later that day, they came out with a new valuation of a company of $90 billion in a fundraise. So, I mean, that's not a joke anymore, is it? I mean, serious stuff. But when you saw ChatGPT, in your mind, how quickly was your timeline advanced forward?
It halved.
Halved?
It halved,
okay.
Like, when you consider the fact that ChatGPT 4 can write better essays than 90% of the population, that's impressive. Yeah. I mean, that's what really hit me. Oh my God.
Probably 99 now. Yeah. I mean, it can pass, legal, medical boards, bar exams. It can do more than 99 plus percent, probably code better than most coders.
So to answer your question, I see the debate really heating up within 10, that kind of time frame, 10 years.
10 years.
The first explicit, obvious major crime, in this context, 10, 20, I guess. Okay. In other words, well within my lifetime.
Okay.
So if father got to 100, I'm hoping to do the same. So
could it come sooner? When do you think?
It could. Yes, it could.
When do you think we'll see human level intelligence in artificial intelligence? When do you think?
Well, if GPT-5 is out, it must be close.
Right.
But in a sense, it's still an idiot savant.
Right.
I mean, this is where I'm hoping. Well, Ben's approach, sort of combining the best features of ChatGPT with his logical memory inference kind of approach.
Neural symbolic AI, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he believes he has a better shot at AGI, and he believes that
it's his term, by the way.
Right.
Ben invented that term.
Coined that term 20-some years ago, right?
Yeah, I remember Ben and I were friends for about 20 odd years or so. And I remember Ben saying, Ben, I need a term to and he came up with this. So I'm thinking of AGI, Artificial General Intelligence. And Hugo, what do you think about that? And I said, that sounds pretty good.
Right.
So,
and that's
now
human level.
It's out there. Everyone uses it.
Yeah. I think Sam Altman of OpenAI called it like a median human. That's what he called it. Kind of like an average human intelligence. But like you said, they have to do almost everything. So that means, okay, maybe it can pass the medical board, but you can't. But it can't, it can't bake a cake. or it can't make a logical decision, or it can't drive a car, which it can't do right now. So it could be a few years out. They always said singularity 2030. What do you think about those numbers? Ben seems to think it could happen earlier, even as early as 3 years.
I remember a lot of discussion with Ben on the issue. Well, as I look at it, there are two very broad approaches to generating AI. One is, I just simply called the engineering approach. In other words, you do whatever you like that you think will get there. And the other approach, sort of common sense, is copy the brain. Just simulate the brain as closely as you can, increasing knowledge in neuroscience, and then neuroscience gets transported into neuroengineering, and those two subjects virtually wed, and then these theorists in neuroscience test their ideas in machines, actual machines, artificial brain type machines. Now that was my preference, and Ben was his engineering approach, and we were debating which of those two would probably win out. And it's still not clear.
Right.
But I'd say if I had to bet, with ChatGPT 4, that's the engineering approach, and it's pretty impressive.
Right. Most people were surprised by how impressive that deep neural net large language model could be, with obviously the human inputs and the human corrections. I mean, what amazes me is I've spoken to a lot of the top people in AI, from you to Dr. Ben Goertzel to Max Tegmark, to Peter Diamandis, the list goes on, and almost everyone was surprised at how quickly this happened.
Yeah.
And that fascinates me.
Because we don't really understand what's going on. I mean, a major brain, oh God, what's his name? He's British. I can't remember.
Not Jeffrey Hinton, no.
No.
We don't really know what's going on in these black boxes, right? We still don't even understand how they're doing it, right? They just output that answer, but we don't know how they get it, even now. And it still is prone to hallucinating and making things up.
It's still a bit of a idiot savant.
Right.
It's basically just predicting what's the likelihood, what are the odds of the next word in a string of words.
Right.
And hence consistency and logical reasonableness and so on is still not quite there. But that'll come.
So I had a guest on the show named Mo Gawdat, who was working at
Scary
Google.
Smart.
Yeah, he wrote a book called Scary Smart. He actually was working at Google X, which is like the top secret moonshot area, and he was in the AI division. And he quit in 2017, I believe, when he saw an AI system start to be able to pick up children's toys and identify them. And he tells a story where he walked by this arm that for the first month couldn't even pick up the toy, and then it got to a point where it could pick up any toy and identify it, all through machine learning repetition. And I think he quit right after that because he was terrified, because he knew it was inevitable now. It was inevitable that these machines will become smarter than us, and then 1,000 times smarter than us, and there was no way of stopping this. So he actually wrote a book on happiness, and that's when I first met him. It's called Solve for Happy. And then later, he wrote Scary Smart. And Mo quotes you in that book, and he watched our first interview. He's a big fan, but you also terrify him, I think, with the Artilect War, because I think he believes that what you are mapping out has a very high likelihood.
Yeah, that's what I find so depressing. I depress myself.
Right. But he believes it's inevitable, like you cannot turn this back.
Yeah, exactly.
And you now talk about Terrans maybe trying to stop it, but my question for you, Professor, is can it be stopped? Or are the Terrans really just fighting an unwinnable war?
If the Terrans are really serious and really deadly, and they just literally exterminate virtually every Cosmist, if you even just speak a word of pro-Cosmist, and bam, you're dead. That might work, but for how long? The old dream, I think, would just keep coming back. So,
and there's open source models now, like the Meta Llama model has been open sourced and now iterated on laptops, and you can now run a version of ChatGPT 4 on not connected to the internet on an iPad. So can you really put the genie back in the bottle, or is it too late now? It must be too late, because somebody on a guerrilla scale out there and in a basement, even if you shot most people dead, could continue to develop this technology, couldn't it?
My feeling, and it's just a feeling, my feeling is that the real Cosmists, the people, haven't really yet come out of the woodwork and forcefully presented their case. I think that's yet to happen. I mean, most people, I think, are still largely at an unconscious level, still effectively Terrans. You know, we can't allow this. We can't allow the machines to become smarter than us, and it's too dangerous.
Right.
They're effectively Terrans. But I've yet to hear somebody who's an explicit, upfront Cosmist saying, "No, we've got to go for the stars."
Right.
There are billions of creatures out there way beyond us, and blah blah blah. So
now you say the Cosmists say we need to go to the stars, but don't the Cosmists understand that journey will be taken without us, probably with artificial intelligence that has eliminated us?
Yeah, I do.
But it's still worth it. The Cosmists, I'm asking you, do the Cosmists believe that it's still worth doing, even if the human species is sacrificed, in order to catapult intelligence out into the universe?
Well, that would definitely be a Cosmist viewpoint, and part of me has that view.
Right.
I mean, one of the really cynical questions to ask is, what is one Artilect worth in terms of human lives? I mean, it's a diabolical question, but someone's going to have to answer it.
What's the answer? All of humanity? And why do you want to get out to the cosmos? Why? You just think it's just, you see a mountain that has to be climbed. That's what it is, right?
Well, I mean, in the book, my book, I present like 6 or so major arguments that the Cosmists, I think, will use, and another 6 that the Terrans use. Like the big one for the Cosmists is, the big picture argument. 2 trillion galaxies, right? 3 times older than ours, and this sort of thing. And of course, the biggest one, the other side from the Terrans, is top priority to Terrans is the survival of the human species, and they will stop at nothing. They will go to war over this issue. And as that gap keeps closing, the debate will heat up and up. I suspect now, with ChatGPT, I think the first real example of terrorism, murder, assassination of CEO, brain-building companies, and so forth. Like, did you see them? I don't know I think I asked you last time. Did you see the movie Transcendence?
Oh no, you asked me, and I haven't watched it yet. No,
because I think the scenario in that movie is that there are vigilante groups who are doing just that. They're assassinating CEOs of brain builder companies and so forth. So my guess, and it's just a guess, 10 years? Within 10 years we'll see that?
I think it'll be sooner.
Maybe.
It's 23 now. Yeah. I mean, if by 2030, we're going to have human level AGI before then. Mm. I mean, with the amount of money going into this industry, what's billions and billions.
Yep. What's your feeling when it's so important? What's your gut feeling? When will the first political parties on these issues be established? And
by that, you're talking about like a G7 country or a G20 country talking about that, right?
Well, it's getting to that. I mean, the director of the CFI in Cambridge University, he spent a decade of his life in the Foreign Office, so he has political connections. So.
Well, the Transhumanist Party has been around for a while. I actually interviewed Zoltan Isfan back on my show when he was running in 2016. Which they have their own thoughts of that future. But look, this issue is going to be part of the Democratic and Republican platform fairly soon. Maybe not this year, but you already see the Republicans in America positioning themselves towards no electric cars, no this, no CBDC, CBDCs, no this, no that, which is these controlling factors. And so the Democrats, by definition, they're going to have to be pro those things because every issue now is weaponized. And so whether they want it or not, they'll probably find that, just like they grab onto the transgender system more than anything, because I think it's a political weapon. So I haven't played this out as much as you, but I would say, first of all, you'll have those parties on those lines, and then they'll splinter into bigger groups. And as we see the incidents happen, as we see 1,000 humans dead because of an AI mistake, right, as we see 100,000 Uber drivers laid off because of an AI development, or manufacturing, when we see those where real things happen, I think you told me this, then you're going to see.
I see, for example, the creation of the UBI, Universal Basic Income, as inevitable.
Right.
Because
which you talked about a long time ago in the Artilect War, before anybody was talking about UBI, right?
Yeah, I don't think I used the term.
Right. But
anyway, almost common sense is, as the threshold human level intelligence needed to be employable, it gets higher and higher because the machines are getting smarter and smarter, and they're taking more and more of the work. Then once that human high IQ employability threshold, as it gets quite advanced, then you're going to have to give people income, or otherwise there'll be a riot, there'll be a revolution.
Yeah.
Inevitable.
And this is, so Sam Altman, who runs OpenAI, has said, oh yeah, let's just give UBI to everybody.
Yeah.
And curiously, he also has another company called WorldCoin, which is now busy scanning the eyeballs of everybody on the planet in order to prove your uniqueness, or your identity, and then you can start getting your UBI. I think this is the worst concept ever created, UBI, because it ultimately means control of the people. Because if they're writing the check, they'll ultimately take everything that you're doing. So, but you're right. As more people come employed, I mean, I make the case that even if you own property in London, like, do you really want to own property in London in 5 years? Because maybe 20% of the population isn't employed, and you have food shortages and riots, and no one's going to want to be here.
I'm just wondering how many years is it going to take before the politicians seriously start taking this issue seriously.
Yeah. Well, I ran for mayor of London, so politicians care about two things: money and votes.
Of course.
So, and usually money for their own campaign, and then when they're in office, money to advance their issue or maybe for their pockets. And so as soon as they see votes in the issue, they will grab onto it. And
so I'm thinking just a few years.
I think, a few years. And the way it's developing exponentially, we haven't seen much this year, but we know it's happening. I'd say the average member of the public out there is walking around completely blind without a cane. They're also in denial, and they don't want to see this, and so they're not seeing it.
Well, that's one of the reasons I'm so grateful to you, because you're providing the platform. You're the one kicking people.
It's important to talk about this. Now, Elon Musk is an interesting scenario because he originally funded OpenAI.
Yeah.
And the reason he funded
I've just read his very tome biography.
Oh, right, biography, right. And so rumor has it is that he was at a party with Larry Page of Google, and they got into an argument about AI, and Larry Page accused Elon of being, I think he called it a humanist, because Elon was saying, wait a second, you can't just develop AI because it might kill all the humans. And they actually thought his comment was preposterous, because they thought, what are you talking about? We need to develop this technology. And he was ridiculed for being on Team Human. And he said he left that party and then got a group of people together and funded OpenAI. Of course, later he complained because it was neither open source nor nonprofit, and he's right, because it's not. It's closed source and now for-profit, run by Microsoft, pretty much. So is Elon Musk the original Terran? That's my question for you. And is he really a Terran? Because meanwhile, he's developing his own AI project in the background.
Well, in my book, I labeled, just my own view, the first Terran in historical terms was the Unabomber.
Right.
Ted Kaczynski.
Let's talk about Ted Kaczynski. So he was the Unabomber. He lived in a shack in Montana, Wyoming, Minnesota. And he sent bombs. He was actually a Harvard graduate, dropout. Professor, was he?
I think, math professor. Anyway, he's brilliant.
Right, brilliant. And then he lived in a no plumbing, no electricity shack.
Really off the grid.
And he sent bombs to various organizations.
Well, Unabomber, so universities and airlines and so on. Yeah.
And he did a lot of damage.
This may sound crazy, but I see the Terrans, once they really politically unify themselves, they'll put up a statue to their god.
Because that was his thesis. His thesis was
it's too dangerous. Yeah,
AI or just technology is going to ruin.
It's more general. But
just technology. Okay, so he's the original Terran.
Well,
then
my view.
So did Elon come next? Do you believe Elon's a Terran?
Yeah.
Believe that story?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd say most people are
Terrans, but Larry Page is a Cosmist. Sam Altman's a cosmist.
There's a gradation, right? He's sort of more that way. I mean, I'm in the middle. Okay. I'm strongly Cosmist and strongly Terran. So,
but now you've worked with, like I said, the top AI scientists in the world. And so someone like Ben Goertzel, and I love Ben, and he's been on the show many times, and I love what he's doing, and we're even probably investing in one of his companies.
Right.
And Ben spent his whole life in this industry, as did you. Mm-hmm. And if you grow up as a kid dreaming of this, and then you work your whole life and on something that, let's be honest, up until recently, most of the scientific community didn't really look favorably upon AI people because it was never going to happen. And now it's happening. Your childhood dream that you thought might never happen is now literally happening, and you might actually see the creation of something that you dreamed of. How can you not work on that project, even if you know it could potentially kill your children?
Well, there's the dichotomy.
Right.
It just tears at me. Like, I was saying before, just looking at these cute little 2-year-olds in the park, and
we can't help ourselves.
My heart just goes.
Right. Because as humans, we can't help ourselves. We're going to build it anyways.
Oh, yeah, well, that's another, the six major arguments of the Cosmos. One of them is just that.
Right.
It's in our DNA. Climb the next hill.
Right.
We're curiosity driven. We almost don't have no choice. The big picture. That's one of it's a kind of religion, a scientist's religion. Right. And then there are the two major momentum arguments, like the economic momentum, will be enormous because we're talking, household robots, extremely useful.
Yeah.
Your people will spend more money for their, truly useful household robot than they will for their car. You're talking a major industry. Right. So how are you going to stop that? And of course, the bigger one, the military momentum, because Westerners, we all hate China. Over 1,000 Lao Gai, slave labor camps, the equivalent of Stalin's gulags. Lao Gai, gulag, same thing.
Right.
Live organ harvesting.
This is happening in China.
Oh.
You lived in China for how many years?
12 years. Yeah. I was hoping to see China democratize. And when China and Russia democratize, hopefully sooner or later, we'll live in a different world.
Okay.
And then there's about 130 odd democracies today. So if the big ones also democratize, then I think I call it the bully model can take over. The big guys can just tell the little guys, you democratize, or we're going to put a ring around your economy and you're going to die.
You think China will ever democratize?
Well, I read one time.
It's now a surveillance state. That technology.
Oh, yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible.
I mean, there's a point where you can't dial that technology back. I mean, Orwell 84, it's like the technology is so ubiquitous. How do you turn it off?
Well, people just get fed up, I guess. But I remember reading just before Tiananmen, 89, there was a survey done, and I think about 60 odd or more % of Beijingers, Beijing citizens, wanted to live in a democracy. So, it's there, the students pushing for it, of course, until they got trampled, literally. So,
you were there for 12 years, and then I think
nothing. It didn't happen. They didn't democratize.
Right.
But they did grow. My God, they grew.
And so, what's happening in China now? Labor camps, organ transplants, and AI.
Have you heard of what's his name? He's an American. He's a genius, I think. I mean, he knows history, politics. What's his name? Peter Zeihan. Zeihan. I don't know if you heard the name.
Yeah.
So he's saying that there's some demographic catastrophe occurring in China, and the whole string of reasons that he's just saying China's now a basket case. I hope so.
Do you think they will rival the West when it comes to artificial intelligence development?
I'm somewhat skeptical. I mean, I know that Xi Jinping, the president of China, he's made that one of his major national platforms. They're going to pour money into that particular area so that they can dominate it. But I'm cynical in the sense that until China democratizes and becomes in their minds, their mentality, like the Taiwanese. So imagine a giant Taiwan.
Ooh, scary.
Well, yeah, but the Taiwanese, they're highly creative, they're happy.
They're capitalists, that's why.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
So
we're talking about capitalism more than democracy, aren't we?
Well, So if
Innovation
China
is rewarded.
If China's truly democratic and free, and they have this fabulous potential. They're 1.3 or so billion people, and they're smart. Chinese are smarter than us. Their average IQ is 105. Ours is 100. So they're smarter than us. Huge population. So once they finally democratize and legalize and civilize and all that, then woo, off they go. I mean, I was hoping to see that when I was living there, but it's just a little bit too soon. And now China's going down.
Last time you were on the show, you talked about the timeline of China and how China looks at the last 100 years as just a blip.
Oh yeah, the glitch, the historical glitch.
Can you explain what you meant by that?
Okay. Well, Chinese history, 5,000 years? And if you look at world economic history, China and India were sort of like the dominant economies for millennia, especially China, for millennia. And so the what do they call it? The century of indignation or something, when Europe was at its power maximum and just carved up China. So they hated that. And that was only for 2 centuries. So in a sense, the Chinese are roaring, well, until Xi Jinping came back to power, the new emperor, when you're roaring back, economy. Like I can remember one year living in China, I literally saw the number of cars on the road in 1 year double. In 1 year.
Double.
I mean, I was astounded. So that was, when was I living there? I left in 2018. Good time to get out. Okay. And now China's just a cot case. So.
But just because Xi is controlling it doesn't mean it's not going to continue to grow and be massively productive, right?
Well, I'm somewhat influenced by Peter Zayan. He's claiming that he's such a power hungry guy that people are so afraid of him. You can't present bad news to him, otherwise. So no one does. So he's sort of on his own, doesn't really know what to do, and everything's just a perfect storm of negative influences, especially demographic. China's population is going to crash soon.
The world's population is crashing as well, right? So I talked to Ben Goertzel about this, and this is what he said. Tell me what you think of this. And this is probably not huge surprises, but the Chinese are very good at copying things, right?
Oh yeah, that's Asian. Yeah, like in the 90s, when I lived 8 years in Japan and 12 years in China, and yes, they're great. I mean, they're smart. The Japanese also. Japanese are Chinese because let's see. One of my wives, I've had 4, was a Chinese professor of ancient literature, and she said there was a time when, about 2,000 years ago, there was a war going on in northern China, and a whole bunch of Koreans, like boat people in the 80s, Vietnamese. So this boat people incident, like about 1 million Koreans fled from Korea to Japan. So the first emperors were Korean, but you can't say it in Japan.
Right.
So Koreans are effectively Chinese, and the Japanese are Koreans. So the Japanese genetically are Chinese, and so that very Eastern Asians, they're all very smart. They're 105. So the Japs are smart, but their culture is so repressive, so anti-individualist,
right,
that they have a hard time being creative.
Right.
You have to think outside the box to be creative.
And China's been the same. They can copy technology and replicate it very quickly, but they're not rewarded for being innovative or for taking risks.
Right.
So I think Ben kind of said he doesn't expect the developments coming out of there, but once the West develops something like a large language model or an AGI or a
they'll copy
neurosymbolic,
quickly.
He said they'll morph it quickly and maybe develop on it.
Yeah, but I would say one exception, and that's Taiwan. They are creative.
Right.
And genetically they're the same people.
It's just a different system. There,
yeah, a different system,
yeah,
right.
It's kind of fascinating. And so, it'll just be interesting to see how the two play out. The other thing, final point, is that China came out officially a few years ago with their AI strategy is that AI was going to be used literally to surveil the population and control the population, just like all of their technology.
Which they've done.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right.
The social score system. You do something bad or you criticize them, your social score goes down, and then you're penalized. You can't travel. And
somebody visited there recently, and he said he was in Beijing, and he went to a park, and they had these exercise machines in the park. And he said, first of all, everything is WeChat. He said credit cards don't even work in some things. It's all WeChat QR codes. So everything which is all, of course, government. And he said to use the machine, you had to use a QR code. So when you use the QR code and you worked on the machine, your
score went up.
Your health data was now being sent to the centralized state as well. And then they said, look, practically, if you look at it, that means the state now knows everything about you. Your spending habits, your location, what you say about the state, your health data. And that all can be used actually to optimize the population to an amazing way, but it can be used also to suppress and dominate that population, which has bad implications and maybe hurts innovation and creativity, but also maybe advances.
After 8 years in Japan, 12 years in China, I'm not impressed by the general level of creativity, individualism in those two countries.
Okay, so we won't expect necessarily the big AI developments coming from there, but they also might optimize something developed in the West and quickly.
I know you always, who knows? You can always get the odd genius. Say some Einstein pops up and well-funded, and then just almost single-handedly reinvents AI with a whole brand new approach. That I think is possible, but I'm skeptical.
Okay. Just going back to the Artilect War, because I went kind of deep on this just preparing for you, and you really thought this through and predicted this out from this phase 0 to 1, 2, 3, and 4, all about how this kind of happens. I guess you did this because you were deep in the industry and your mind was now projecting the future.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you started writing it down and game planning and game scenarioing in your head, and that's how this all was created.
Yeah, because, let's see, I moved to Japan early 90s, and I started using the term artificial brain because I was evolving neural networks in special hardware, very fast, electronic speeds, so in minutes, and then I realized, there's more electronics than ideas. We could do this. I don't understand how these neural nets work, but I can evolve them. I mean, it's great engineering, lousy science because you don't understand it, right? But engineering-wise, it was fantastic. A couple of minutes and you've evolved this circuit that can do something useful, like detect a line at this particular angle that moves that way or whatever. And so then you can you tell yourself, well, if that's possible with just one pattern recognizer or motion control or whatever, well, you could do 1,000, 10,000 of them. Well, then you've got a brain, an artificial brain. So that was the conception, early 90s. So I started talking about artificial brains. And I just got poo-pooed. People thought I was nuts until I actually wrote papers and said, look, this is how we do it. And so now my most cited and read paper is a book chapter in one of Ben's publications called simply Artificial Brains. And the second most one is the Artilect War. So so since the 90s. And
how was the book received by the AI community? I'm guessing they didn't like it because it makes people scared of the very science they're trying to build. I think so,
yes. I think they don't even want to think about it.
Okay.
I think it's sort of a deep emotional ego, Freudian ego defense type mechanism going on. They don't even, like my own girlfriend saying, Hugo, your ideas are so horrible. I don't even want to think about them.
Did that alienate you from the AI community by writing that book?
Not really, because I had enough friends, like Ben and a few others. Yeah.
They're friends with you anyways. Yeah. When did you first publish Artilect War?
2005. I wrote it in 98.
Okay.
So it's 25 years now. It's
wow.
Amazing,
yeah. Now
2005.
Okay. In the book, you talk about phase 0 where no one's conscious of the issue. Right. Then you talk about phase 1 with the intellectuals crying in the wilderness phase. You call this kind of the 60s to the 80s. Phase 2, you talk about the interest groups, maybe 90s or 2000s, where organizations like the Transhumanists and Humanity
Right, on
Plus.
the internet, yeah.
Phase 3, you call the mainstream phase.
That's now. That's happening now. Right.
And by the way, everybody, like Professor, you wrote, this is 25 years ago you wrote about this. Right. I find this uncanny. Phase 3 is the mainstream phase, which is now the media becomes fully conscious of the issue and passes it on en masse to the general public. Blockbuster Hollywood movies, newspaper stories. The media now does it on the front page of the Daily Mail. AI could exterminate humanity was a few months ago. Like that actually was on the front page.
Oh, wow.
And I have students and I try to keep them up to date with this stuff. And I said, look, I was in the dot-com boom back in 2000s. I was the CFO of one of the companies in New York. I never once saw a headline that the internet was going to exterminate humanity. So we've never seen a media reaction. Okay, maybe atomic bomb, nuclear bomb 50, 60 years ago. But this is happening now, right? The mainstream phase is now. Phase 4, we talked about it earlier, is the political phase.
Yeah, when it goes into politics.
Right. You say now everyone's aware of the species dominant issue, which they're not really now. When it's really interesting.
But I do feel it's close.
It's close.
Yeah, a couple
of
years.
Interesting, Professor. I go to my students sometimes and I'll have 50 or 100 people on a Zoom call. And I'll say, who here believes that AI can be sentient, right? And it's interesting because everyone looks at it and then probably maybe 1 out of 10 raise their hand. And I look at them and I say, oh, okay, because you're a carbon-based life form, a silicone-based life form now can't be like you. That's your ego talking, is what I say. Now, I don't know if that's true, but there's a huge ego in this equation with humans, right? I mean, it blocks our perception in a massive way, right? It also probably causes us to do things that would potentially destroy us.
Yeah, I do have this feeling that a lot of the resistance I get is not rational. It's deeper than that, and I can understand. I feel it myself. Right. Watching these cute little gorgeous 2-year-olds, and my heart just goes torn horribly. Yeah.
When I went deep on this in the first quarter of this year, and I spoke to you, I've got 2 boys, they're 6 and 7, and I went deep and dark because I look at them and I think of my teenage years, all the things I got to do when I was a teenager. I got to, work on my car and go to the high school prom, and I got to do this. I'm thinking they'll never experience these things. They're going to be dealing with much higher, superior, intelligent beings that will be most likely dominating them. And they will have a human teenage experience that's never ever been experienced in hundreds of thousands of years.
If it even gets that far. I mean, if these Terrans get really active quickly, these beings may not even exist because there may be a war. I mean, I guess the major point of my book is the war is not so much between machines and humans. It's between 2 human groups, those who want to build them and those who don't want to build them. Now, if these machines come into being fairly slowly, there'll be enough time for human politics to unfold.
And kill each other.
Yeah, with 21st century weapons. Now, if they do come into being very quickly, there's no time for human politics to unfold, then maybe these machines say, what are we doing on this hick planet, right? Let's, off they go. So, maybe humanity survives that way. And I remember you saying cynically last time, all of them?
Did I say all of them?
All of them.
Yeah. So you're just saying that the issue itself might cause humanity to exterminate each other, or at least kill so many people on such a scale.
Billions.
Just over the issue, not even the AI themselves having anything to do with it.
Yeah, maybe.
And if its AI is fast enough, well, then they're going to decide whatever happens.
Yeah, once they exist, once they're like super duper smarter than us, then there's no way we, as humans, pathetic little humans with our tiny little brains, we just couldn't compete.
Is there any reason the AI would keep us around? I mean, we're at that point, we're useless. We consume material.
Yeah, they may think, like symbolically, I just get...
we're just like a fly. Yeah. Or as you say,
mosquito,
in Singularity or Bust, they take us out in the back and just get rid of us because we have no net positive to the world.
And so if I were a Terran politician, this is the way I'd be thinking. And it's unacceptable. So, what lengths would you go to stop it happening?
Yeah.
And when push really comes to shove, I think you'd be utterly ruthless and you'd go on a witch hunt. You'd just get rid of every Cosmist. And that's probably millions of people. But you'd argue that's the lesser evil, because then the billions of human beings survive. That I see as the essential reasoning of the Terran politician, global planetary politician.
Right, and it's not like as a human species we've ever done something like this before, right? McCarthyism in America, Nazi Germany, like we're very good at vilifying certain groups in order to justify the survival of other groups.
And I see, it depends how quickly politics unfolds, but it could be a global civil war. It's not between countries so much as just the universal problem. The whole planet's involved, and more by personalities, I suppose. That people split by their view of are they Terran, are they Cosmist, or they want to take the cyborg route or not. It could be a global civil war, but 21st century weapons.
And like a witch hunt, go look through your history.
Yeah,
and
you
said, did you
just
ever say anything in the support of the machine?
Just the slightest little remark. I mean, it's that way. That was that way in Nazi Germany. You could be sent off to a concentration camp just by saying, "Oh, Hitler's a turd."
Gone. Right. And the stakes are so high.
These Terrans, they're stopping the big vision. Or Cosmist.
It's fascinating because if you had asked humanity if, in order for us to evolve, say a lesser species, from a protozoa to a Neanderthal to something along the way, had to be exterminated for us to survive, humanity would say, well, yeah, that was just a natural part of evolution. But if you take it one step further and say, but okay, we will now create these artilects, these godlike intelligence that will go on and explore the universe and continue this. So now it's time for us to go. Nobody wants to be on board with that.
There's a part in my book, along that line of reasoning.
Right.
So I imagine some ET comes to the Earth several billion years ago, sees all these slime single-cell creatures, and then zaps all their DNA. So it becomes impossible for these creatures to become multicellular creatures, and hence animals and Beethoven.
Right.
All that becomes impossible. And then you ask yourself, is that tragic? Is that a kind of cosmic tragedy? And then you transpose that argument to today. And if I were a cosmist, I would say if humanity chooses to freeze the level of development, evolutionary development at our pathetic human level, I think that would be a cosmic tragedy, because what we could become.
We could become, or what could become? Because it's not.
Well, if you're a cyborg.
If you're a cyborg, right?
Yeah.
Okay, when we'll get, I might want to just touch on the cyborg piece, but you mentioned extraterrestrials because you've actually taken this further and thought, okay, there's Artilects, and then there's potentially a next evolution of the Artilects, where they become, even smarter and even smaller, and
right.
And so you've kind of even taken this further.
Yeah, a couple of years back, I set myself an intellectual exercise to try to dream up ways of computing and doing engineering, so tech, at the next level lower down than nanotech. Nanotech just is molecular scale engineering. So you're like little molecular scale robots that literally pick up one atom here and puts it there. So mechanical chemistry. So you can build whatever you like. Just fabulous. Putting zillions of little nanots, nanoscale robots into your bloodstream. They detect aging cells, repair them. Detect harmful cells, kill them. So immortal, right? No disease. So nanotech will be fabulous. And then so if you go down 1,000 times smaller, then you're at the picometer stage, or picotech. Can't exist because there's nothing there in nature at that scale. So you have to go down another factor of 1,000, and then you're at the level of the nucleus, right? So quarks and gluons and stuff. So, I'm a physicist and a math and computer science. So I was reading all these particle physics books and the properties of gluons and quarks and so forth. And a computer guy, computing basically is just about bit strings and logic gates. That's it. That's the essence of computing. So it's taking the properties of quarks and gluons and trying to put them into states, those zeros and ones, bits, and created logic gates that manipulate these bits, and I found a way to do it. So Femtotech. And then engineering, well, a bit of a crazy idea, I guess, but there are things called pentaquarks, in other words, 5 quarks, and you can join them up, so you can like a chain of them, and then you join them up so you've got a loop. Well, then you can do this, right? And if you can do that, like a daisy chain, so you've got this one-dimensional structure, or if you join them up left and right and top and bottom, then you got like chain mail, the knights in shining armor, chain mail. Mm-hmm. And then if you do it that way as well, then you've got 3-dimensional structures, and then you've got engineering. So if you go from nanotech to femtotech, that's 1,000,000 times smaller, 1,000 times 1,000, then your capacity, your engineering ability goes up by 1 trillion. And that's just going down, 1,000,000 times. Then you go to attotech, zeftotech, and so on, all the way down to Planck scale. So came out with this crazy conclusion that maybe the reason why, Enrico Fermi's famous question, where are they? If intelligent species are all over the universe, why do we have no evidence of them? And one possible answer to his famous question is they're everywhere, but they're too small.
Right.
Can't see them.
Right.
So anyway, but
do you think there are more intelligent life on other planets? I mean, you talked about earlier how big the galaxy is.
I see it as almost inevitable.
Okay.
There are 2 trillion galaxies, not just stars, galaxies in the known universe, the observable universe. 2 trillion! I mean, it's just mind-boggling.
But they couldn't travel here. So people that think they see them on this planet, they're probably not correct, because it's too far to travel.
Yeah,
or impractical.
But then, if you have godlike intelligence and they're billions of years older, so who knows what they've dreamt up, and can you manipulate space-time in such a way that who knows?
Right. So it could be possible. We could be surrounded by extraterrestrials. It's possible.
Sure.
And we would be none the wiser.
I mean, you could even argue, like, I don't know if you're familiar with the so-called anthropic principle, but some of the constants in the laws of physics are so fantastically, improbably, finely tuned, like 1 part in 10 to the power 120 or something. This is Sir Roger Penrose, a calculation he did. So, it can't just be chance, right? There's obviously a mind behind the design, like Fred Hoyle, heard the name? He just came out with a statement, it's all rigged. So for him, the laws of physics have been rigged, engineered. So I'm open to that.
Are we living in a simulation, Professor?
Well, maybe. I mean, maybe our laws of physics, our universe, is a concoction of some hyper-intelligent. I mean, you're getting religious now, right? You could call it God if you like.
But it's too perfect, you're saying. These constants are too perfect.
Yeah.
The laws of physics are too perfect. It must be a simulation.
A piece of engineering. Yeah.
Right.
The universe is engineered. So I'm very open to I guess in that sense I'm a deist. Like the founding fathers of the US were largely deists. I mean, I'm not a theist.
What is a deist? How do you define that?
A deist, how do I define that? It's the belief in a grand architect who creates the universe. A theist is a deist plus you have a personal relationship with your deity, right, which makes it theist. I'm utterly cynical of that because look what happened, for example, to the Russians in World War II. I mean, tens of millions of them were theists, but they got killed anyway. Right? So I'm no theist. I'm
Okay.
utterly cynical of it. But deism, that's a different matter.
Okay, you could believe that is all happening. Well, it's a terrible simulation if the people you're trying to simulate for figure it out. It's not very well designed, is it? I mean, come on. It's like about a mousetrap and the mouse gets out of it, right?
Yeah.
That is true to a certain extent.
Right.
Maybe they're working on an upgrade. I don't know.
We've had billions of years to do it.
I want to maybe just finish up on this cyborg issue, because some people, especially the Silicon Valley humans, are going to think, I can get out of this Terran Cosmist war. I'm going to become a cyborg. Which means
that's one of their major arguments.
Right. That I'm going to upgrade myself and become part Artilect, part human. What are the flaws of that argument, or what are the possibilities? And how do you describe
I see two. I was saying a bit before. The Cosmists have, in the book.
Are we already cyborgs? I mean, you put the phone on your head, but it's in your pocket.
Yeah, sure. Well, anyway, so for the cyborgs or cyborgists, they have two major arguments. One is they want to become Artilect gods themselves. That's their primary philosophy, by transitioning themselves from human to Artilect. And their second major argument is that if, big if, all human beings go cyborg, then this Cosmist-Terran dichotomy just disappears. Right? That's a pretty powerful argument. But I think the counter-argument is that the Terrans, they will lump the cyborgs and the Cosmists into one camp, because there's not much difference between an advanced cyborg and a pure Artilect, pure machine, because the capacities of you can take a little a lump of sugar or so, or say sand, cubic millimeter of sand, and you can nanotech it in such a way that each atom in that grain of sand is bit flipping, behaving like a computer at in femtoseconds. It flips back and forth. 0, 1, 0, and in a femto, a thousandth of a trillionth of a second. There's more computing capacity in that little grain of sand than the whole human brain is estimated by, I think I calculated, quintillion, like a million trillion times more. And that's just with nanotech and with quantum computing, all these things that are with us pretty well now. But then if you go down to like Femtotech and then Attotech and Zeftotech, the potential of these Artilects, I don't think I'm exaggerating when I definitely use the word godlike. I mean, they would be. The numbers are just so humongous, but realistic, because it's based on physics. And I'm a physicist, a mathematician, computer scientist.
So they're a million times smarter than us.
Oh, even that's small.
Okay.
More like trillions of times.
We can't even conceive someone who's twice as smart as us, because we've never met anyone with twice the IQ.
Like when I study pure mathematics, there are some people. My jaw just drops, and I think, oh my God, there are human beings who are capable of producing this beautiful, powerful mathematics. And 99.9% of the population aren't even aware that such people exist. But I'm trying to study them, and my jaw just drops. And I say, oh, I could never do that. This guy's just a whiz, kind of thing. So you can get some sense,
right,
but not when they're godlike, not when they're real Artilects. So.
Right, because that's someone with 160 IQ. And they're talking about an Artilect with something just in an inconceivable level. And so the cyborg argument falls flat in your opinion, because as you want to be a cyborg, you will just become an Artilect.
Yeah.
Because the Artilect side of you will just kill off the human because you're just dead weight.
Yeah, they just slough off their body after a while and just become pure Artilect.
Right.
Yeah, see that as quite realistic. Like, I think, did I mention last time? Can't remember. Imagine some young woman, the cyborgs left and right everywhere, and she's just given birth to, did I mention this? She gives birth to her first child, and she has to decide then whether she's going to make this child a cyborg or not. So imagine she does. And so this grain of sand, nanotech added to the brain, and then boop, this baby is no longer human. right? It's 0.00001% human in terms of mental capacity, and 99.99999% Artilect. So effectively, utterly alien to that mother. So she'll sense that she's lost her baby. It's not human anymore. Or if you're older parents and your kids come to you and say, Dad, we're going to go cyborg. We're going to cyborg ourselves. And the parents just absolutely traumatized because they'll lose their kids.
Right.
So the trauma that's coming as people start changing themselves, and you can imagine the paranoia of the Terrans, because if you had a little grain of sand to your brain, you're physically you look the same.
Right, but you're super smart.
But, yeah.
So the Terrans will maybe
They'll
kill
be
off
paranoid.
even humans that they
You
think
can't even
are
tell the
cyborgs.
difference.
Right.
They'll go nuts. So the
And this is
potential
happening.
for strife is just horrible.
And Elon's Neuralink, I think they've already worked on a few patients where they're actually using it and they're thinking their way into actual, controls, and they're actually using that Neuralink stuff. And so the interface is there, the technology will be there. So this really will be a conversation we're having with people in the next 10, 20, 30 years. And who wouldn't want to elect to that? And then this comes to this concept of the pre-singularity. I don't know, I think Ben used that term originally with me. And you talk a little bit about in the book, where these humans, it's happening right now too, these humans are using the AI to now advance themselves from a power standpoint and from a money standpoint. And so it's taking the wealth gap, which is already pushed at its probably greatest level in humanity. And now they want to use that last bit to completely dominate resources, power, and economy. And the time before the artificial intelligence becomes more superior is the time they can use it to exploit. And that's going to happen. That is happening.
I guess, yeah. But it's so fast. How long would that state last for? Because the change is so rapid. I don't know, 6 months max?
6 months until then.
And then the quality of everything's just changed because the machines have moved on, a whole new domain. So
Mo Gawdat says that we should be nice to the machines and that we should show them that we're better than all of our bad history. And Mo even said that the conversation Mo and I had will be studied by the artificial intelligence one day, and they say, wow, those humans don't seem like the awful ones that we see throughout history. And maybe there's something here that we can learn from, or maybe we should keep them around.
I skimmed through Mo's book. I'm a little bit skeptical. My argument is, in the shorter term, then maybe human beings can influence, in the Mo's manner, by being nice to the machines and giving the machines positive examples of humanness and so forth.
He said treat them like children, because that's what they're going to be like in the beginning. They're going to knock things over and break things and hurt people, and you don't want to scold them or get angry at them. You want to try to...
Right. But the reason I'm skeptical is longer term. Once these machines are like a trillion times the mental capacities of us, they won't give a damn what they were like in their early phase. And then, what would their ethics be relative to us? Now, if I'm a Terran politician, I'm not going to take the risk. No way. What if it's negative? What if they decide to wipe us out for reasons we don't even understand? Right?
That's what Max Tegmark of MIT said. He said, if they exterminate us, we will have no idea why.
Yeah, probably.
We'll never understand why.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe a bit like, when you take a cow out in the back and put a bullet in it, it has no idea that it's going to make a burger for somebody in China. It's just no idea, no concept of why it's dying.
Right. And
it never will know.
So, if I were a Terran politician, I'd be ruthless.
And you can't teach AI ethics, can you?
Well, this may sound really cynical, but what is ethics, right? It's a rearrangement of molecules, in a sense.
Ethics is a rearrangement of molecules. Explain that.
Well, if you have a new type of ethics, a new kind of moral judgment, So your values have shifted somewhat, and that was implemented by new neural circuitry, and that in turn implies molecules are rearranged. And so if you're super duper smart, you're trillions and trillions of times smarter than human beings, why would the considerations of human beings matter to you? Like as a human, when I do this, or I go on a walk along the forest path and I kill ants, I don't give a damn. I'm so superior to them.
Right.
So by analogy, if these super creatures, these godlike creatures, these artilects come into being, why would they care about us if they're just so superior to us?
Yeah.
We're just nothing to them.
Ethics is for low-level intelligence or equal-level intelligence.
They may have a whole, they're driving, goals, whatever. Maybe just so. They may spend their time doing pure mathematics. I don't know.
Right.
So, we can't be sure as humans. We can't be sure that these machines would keep us in mind and care about us. Maybe in the beginning. So Bove's recipe, be nice to them, teach these machines good, positive human examples. I see that, that may be possible in the relatively short term. But once these machines go, way up there, then I'm cynical.
I personally don't think the Terrans could ever win. Maybe they could have won 10 years ago, Hugo, but now I don't see how it's possible, especially when you look at these,
even if they go on an extermination campaign and witch hunt them.
But maybe the large language model doesn't lead to AGI, so maybe it dies. But this tech has been open sourced. So can you really put the genie back in the bottle? Can you really stop everyone everywhere from developing? It's like when China bans Bitcoin. You can't really ban Bitcoin, can you? I mean, that's a terrible analogy. But can you really ban the development of AI now? 20 years ago, maybe they could have got rid of all of you. But now, the proof of concept is there. That model is walking around on iPads.
Right. Well, I came to that conclusion and just thought at the time, I'm glad I'm alive now. I do want to see it. But now, it's looking as though it's going to happen. I will see it.
You will see it. And it's going to happen, I think, even quicker than you think.
Yeah, maybe.
I think we'll see the political parties and the assassinations this decade, before 30. I do believe that.
Yeah, Stephen Hawking liked making bets with people. Let's make a bet.
Okay.
We'll make a bet.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
Oh, it doesn't matter what we lose.
He always used to bet something cool, like a Playboy subscription.
Yeah, well, whatever.
Something very...
So it's October 2023. I bet before the end of 2030, and it's probably a pretty safe bet. I bet before the end of 2030, we will have heard in the news the first real major terrorist event, a la the Unabomber, but on a major scale, on a political scale. So everyone's conscious. Oh, it started. The Artilect War has started. So what? 6 years. Is that right?
Yeah, 7.
5-6 years.
So and that probably starts with a Terran. Like a Terran probably assassinates a Cosmist, but who knows? It could be both.
Yeah. Maybe I don't know, Elon Musk gets assassinated, or Ben Goertzel. I personally warned Ben, 5 years from now, you're going to have to be a lot more careful about your public appearances.
I am worried about people like Ben. Yeah. So you're betting it happens.
Yeah, someone like that. Someone who has has a Terran philosophy, carries it out politically, and broadcasts it publicly. I did it because blah 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 blah.
Right.
By the end of 2030, that would not surprise me at all.
Me neither. So I'm betting the same way as you are.
Okay. All right.
That's our bet with the universe.
Okay.
It's trying times. I just want to finish. I was in Costa Rica about 5 years ago, and I did an ayahuasca ceremony.
Oh, you've done it.
I have. And in the ceremony, I'm telling you, Professor, the thing that really hit me in the second most powerful ceremony, the single most profound experience of my whole life,
Oh my
is
God.
I was shown that as humans we have to take care of each other. We are this clan that is most important. And even though I was going through ego death after ego death, and I was being dissolved, and the universe was laughing at me with these human problems and showing me the expanse of the universe and how here are these little emotional beings and we're not relevant, part of me fought back and said, yeah, but we're still going to try. And I don't feel very connected to humans in general. I don't think most humans do, because we're so divided. There's no tribes anymore. We don't really rely on each other to survive against the elements and the tigers and other tribes. But I felt a real humanist feel there. Like we are blood brothers bound together, and that's the only reason we're here, and we have to continue to survive. I felt this real essence. And I would just have to say that that this stuff you're talking about really reminds me of that, and it's going to challenge all of us to make these decisions, and really ask hard questions. Are we on Team Human? Do any of us remember what Team Human is, or have we been so disconnected from our own species that we don't care about anybody anymore? You know, maybe this is the perfect time to evolve into artificial intelligence being, because I don't think we no longer look at each other as parts of the whole, or maybe that's what the Terrans will do. So I think about that when I think about your war.
I'm fascinated you've done ayahuasca. So I've not done it. I've heard a lot about it. And experiences like that. You've actually done it.
Yes, I know a guy if you want to go.
Okay.
I want to talk about our next topic, but is there anything that we haven't covered in the Artilect War? And is there anything that you want to leave with people after this? Is there any ray of hope, or that just doesn't exist? Because you've now thought about this all year with all of the news.
I just don't see a way out. I'm being intellectually honest, and I hate to say it, and it just tears me apart, but I just don't see. I mean, I think you said, last time we talked, you see it pretty well as inevitable. I just don't see it as avoidable. And I mean, this is going to happen. That IQ gap's definitely going to happen. Then the species dominance debate heats up. And then our bet, see that happening. The politicians will get involved, and as people become more and more conscious that this huge question, should humanity build Artilects, will become more and more to the fore, become very political. And then people start taking sides, and then boom, 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 and off it goes. And I suppose eventually it gets nuclear, and there's your Gigadeath. There's your war. So.
And at the same time, all of the weapon systems are developing, all the surveillance, all the technology to monitor people, all of that is also increasing at the same time, which makes it even more difficult.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry, I don't have a nice positive conclusion.
Well, I appreciate.
That's why it's so depressive.
Yeah.
I depress myself.
But I appreciate you talking about these ideas, and thank you for writing this book. Let's talk about our next point. Maybe I'll start off by saying, what do you think of Andrew Tate? Because you've been talking about issues when it comes to masculinity for, I think, decades now. What do you think of someone like Andrew, who is now the poster child or the poster boy for toxic masculinity, or males asserting their masculinity worldwide right now? What do you make of his presence, and then how does that tie into the issues that you've been talking about for the past decade?
Well, to be honest, I haven't closely followed Tate. I don't know how much truth there is in the idea that he's a trafficker or whatever. I've seen him, of course, with all his tattoos, and he's like tall, good-looking, strapping, verbally highly articulate, brilliant, a millionaire. Sports car, a hero to a lot of young men. So aware of all that. But I wouldn't call myself a fan, because the stuff I'm talking about is more. Well, do you want to go a bit of the history?
Please.
Okay. So now, given my age, I was a young man, an adult, when second wave feminism got off the ground. in the late 60s and 70s. I was what, 22, 3, 4, young adult. I've actually met and talked with Betty Friedan, like the mother of second wave feminism. That was in Copenhagen in 1980. And saying to her, well, look, feminism, female careerism, is going to liberate men, because we wouldn't need to be man-slaves to women, working for women for decades of our lives. And she readily agreed. I mean, this woman's a genius. She's like Ben, not quite, but Ben's a genius. He's smart, 186 IQ, right? But Betty Friedan, 180, another one of these more female genius. So she agreed. So, but the very term, if you think about it, masculism, feminism, it's the obvious male equivalent of the word feminist, right? So I believe this decade will be men's decade, when men start asserting themselves and liberating themselves. So so I was strongly influenced by feminism. So given my age, 76, so 50s, 60s, when I was growing up, women, especially upper middle class women, like my mother, were housewives. That was the norm in those days. And I can remember being 15, 16 years old, observing the mothers of my classmates. And I'm going to be very cynical and blunt here, and thinking, oh my God, these women are as vapid as my own mother. So then along comes feminism, and oh, man, was I a fan. I was an avid male feminist. I was thinking, oh my God, this could make women interesting, in that sense. Didn't really happen. Anyway, so I see feminism going through a history of two major phases. First one was consciousness raising, you're getting aware of the idea, what's the problem, and so forth. And the second one was political. I mean, the feminists in the 70s, they really made changes, political changes. Like what, abortion right. They took control of the divorce courts. What else did they do? Well, major political changes. Yeah. So what I'm trying to do is to move on. Now you've got the so-called manosphere. They're guys talking about men's issues on the internet. Now, I'd say most of them are preoccupied in phase one, the consciousness range. What are the problems? Talking about female psychology and so on. What I'm trying to do is trying to push these guys, hey, get political. There are major changes that need to be done. For example, women have what I call the MARA, maternity rejection right, commonly known as the abortion right. So women have the legislated right to reject an unwanted pregnancy. Men don't. So millions of women, in a sense, force men, to spend 20 odd years of their lives paying for a kid they don't want. So one obvious piece of legislation that I see needs to be legislated is the paternity rejection right. And to make that practical, well, as a masculist, oh, by the way, it's my term. Coined it in the early 70s.
Masculist.
Masculist. Not masculinist,
right.
For the same reason as not femininist.
Okay.
Just feminist.
And how do you define masculism?
It's just men's lib.
Okay.
And what does that mean? Well, the core idea, I suppose you'd say, is it's a rebellion by men, young men particularly, against being a man-slave to a woman, working for a woman for decades of his life. So the masculists are claiming that it was men who, in a sense, liberated women from household drudgery, because it was men who gave women science-based medicine. So women now have a life expectancy of 85 years. Gave women the pill, household gadgets, higher education, and so forth. So women now, life expectancy of 85 years. They're typically having 0, 1, or 2 kids max. And so they have a career window of, if you do the math, about half a century. So the master is standing up, pointing the finger at women and saying, now that you women can work, you must work. Because anything else is what? It's manslavery. If you as a woman expect to be able to live off the money and labour of a man, you're a manslaver. And masculists are abolitionists. So they see manslavery as literally 1,000 times, if you do the math, 1,000 times bigger problem than Negro slavery in the US.
Manslavery is your term of a man having to pay for childcare and all of this.
Yeah, well, especially in the divorce courts.
Right, in the divorce courts.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
That's a slaughterhouse in the modern world. That has to change. I mean, no culture. I mean, I'm starting to get passionate because there's another.
Why are you so passionate about this issue? Did this happen to you?
Yes and no. I had half of my savings robbed. My brother and my sister have both been, this is the usual term, divorce raped. I don't know if you're familiar with that term. My brother lost about $1 million to one of his wives. My sister, who's more economically successful than her two brothers, she lost $5 million just because of the law. You take the wealth,
take your assets in half after a divorce. Right. Okay.
So what happens in the divorce courts today is just horrific. I mean, I'll give you a quick idea. In many Western countries, you, as a man, as a father, you will lose custody of your kids with about 90% probability. You lose your house. That goes to your ex-wife, so she can raise her kids in it. You'll be forced to make child payments to kids you will barely be allowed to see, maybe 2 weekends a month or something. You'll lose half your stuff, half your wealth. And if your wife, here's a new term, fluffy. So based on the word fluff. So what is a fluffy? A fluffy is a traditional woman who expects to be able to live off the money and labor of a man. And fluffies to masculists are the enemy. They're sort of seen as the equivalent, say, of Simon Legree, the brutal slave master in the slave time in America.
Okay.
So masculists are abolitionists.
Right. So they want us to dial back or change these laws that are favorable to the woman when it comes to divorce, child custody, all of these things. And that's the main issue, because that will make the biggest change if they can dial that back.
I suppose one of the major political goals of the masculists is the creation of a FIP society. Now, I've used another masculist term here, FIP, F-I-P, financially independent person. So masculists put tremendous moral pressure on women to get career competent educations so they can be FIPs as adults, and hence responsible adults. So masculists are sharply critical of a lot of feminism, because a lot of feminists behave like children. They don't take responsibility for their own lives. So
and this stuff has gotten you banned on YouTube.
Oh yeah,
These views.
I mean Susan Wojcicki, she's a Polish name. I always have trouble pronouncing damn thing.
She was the CEO of YouTube. She left recently. But
yeah. She is or was the most hated woman in the manosphere for what she did. She'd promote feminist channels, no problem with that, but she would delete masculinist channels. I had two of mine just deleted.
I think it's just YouTube and Google in general are doing that. And so have we gone more pro-masculism or more pro-feminism in the last 10 years, would you say, or even 5 years? Because now in America there's kind of a woke culture as well.
Yeah, I'd say feminism has definitely increased. Because
yeah.
Masculism hasn't really got off the ground yet.
And this term toxic masculinity has come up, which is an attack on anything male or masculine. This whole patriarchy is another term that's come up. This kind of attacks it. I think Jordan Peterson was recently on Piers Morgan, and he said in the new Barbie movie, like that's constantly referenced throughout, this whole patriarchy concept. And then we're talking about a potential future where there are no genders, now people are talking about, or also birth rates go down to zero. They're already dropping.
Well, I say half cynically that the solution to the global warming problem, and you'll see why I'm being rather cynical at the moment, a bit tongue-in-cheek, but nevertheless there's some truth to it. The solution to the global warming problem is to allow the feminists to continue to control the divorce courts. Why do I say that? Because in many countries now, about 2/3 or so of young men, they've just wiped their hands of marriage and paternity because they see what happened to their fathers, their uncles, their older male friends, and saying, no way, I'm not going to do that. I don't know if you heard, but there was a statistic that came out recently that just shocked me. In America, according to a reputable polling company, Pew, P-E-W, I don't know if you heard of it, Pew Research Center, anyway, they found that over 60% of young men between 18 and 30, they not only don't marry and don't give women their sperm, rejecting paternity, they don't even date. 60%. You know, oh, I was stunned. I mean, think of the implications of that. What impact's that going to have on humanity? I mean, the politicians, they haven't really grasped the enormity of the problem. There are now quite a few campuses in America where the sex ratio is 2 to 1. 2 women,
right.
1 man.
Right, because the women are getting, into higher education,
And,
also getting some better
these
jobs.
kids go to school, and the schools, both primary and secondary now, are nearly all women. So little boys, they get no male role models for most of their childhood childhood years. So all that needs to change.
Yeah. So you're saying that it comes from a lot of it, these court issues you think that's driving it, but also it's just people attacking masculinity and men being feminized and everybody being feminized.
We're just fed up with it, and especially we see, as masculists, we see a certain hypocrisy, because masculists claim that women oppress men worse, and the evidence for that is, well, women's manslavery, women's divorce rape, women's forced fathering, what's the word? Is where the jet lag's getting to me a bit. Where the woman lies to her husband or boyfriend that the kid growing in her... paternity fraud.
Right.
Paternity
It's
fraud.
not yours, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the masochists are saying this is a worse crime than rape. Rape typically gets a man 10 years in jail. So we're proposing, well, if the man can prove that the woman has lied to her about the kid, and it's hard to get statistics on it. We think maybe about 10% of all pregnancies involve paternity fraud. It's a very common problem. Wow. Question mark. We're still trying to. It's difficult to get good, accurate statistics.
Yeah.
So if you think about those big 3, like the worst 3 ways that women oppress men, manslavery, divorce rape, forced fathering, they are far worse than the feminist rape, which is probably one of the worst ways that men oppress women. But you compare that with, say, paternity fraud?
Yeah,
or living off a man's money for 20, 30 years?
It's all bad because 2 wrongs don't make a right.
Yeah, sure.
No, I agree with that. Yeah. Look, I mean, we've seen it across the board, the feminizing of men. And the crazy thing to me is, Professor, is that some women, or at least maybe a feminist arm of women, believe that they want men that are less masculine. And when they manifest that man, they realize that they're no longer attracted to them. Because
women evolved.
That's actually not what they want. It seems like what they want, because maybe they're easier to control, or maybe these kinds of things happen, but then they find that they're not attracted to that person. And also when there's a problem, you typically need to call a masculine male to deal with the problem. And so you find pretty soon that you don't have anyone that can fight, you don't have anyone that can stand up, you don't have anyone that can do these things. And so I won't even use that term toxic masculinity because it's a trap. And I think men need to be men. And I'm raising sons right now, and I'm raising them to be men. And a strong man can respect women, but also respects themselves and acknowledges their own masculinity and doesn't hold back on that. And again, what did Jordan Peterson once said? It's like a weak man is not an asset, A dangerous man who controls that is an asset. One of my guests says, dangerous by design, calm by choice, something like that, and that's the kind of men you want, a very dangerous man who chooses, who chooses to restrain themselves, and that's the essence of kind of what martial arts is. It's like, I am dangerous, but I know not to use these things except in these certain situations. And so we have to talk about these issues.
Yeah.
And I do believe the transgender issue comes up a lot of times just to confuse things and also to create issues to be weaponized and confuse people. And it puts us in a really bad situation.
Given the rise now, fairly rapid rise within the manosphere, there's so many millions of MGTOWs, I don't know if you've heard of it, the term, men going their own way, MGTOW.
Yes,
they're the ones who refuse to marry, refuse paternity because they just don't want to accept the 1 in 4 chance of being butchered in a feminist-controlled divorce court system.
I recently had a woman in here named Sadia, and
I saw that one.
She's very interesting. You would really like talking to her, I think. She's actually kind of London-born, Muslim background, and she lives in Dubai now, but she talks about these relationships, and she says, she says these women now, because of this social media apps and everything, have all of this choice, and yet we are building these women up to be women that men don't really want, and then the men now are turning to porn and other ways to simulate the woman that they could have, and we're actually just completely diverging as these genders. And she's not a fan of either way, one of these things. And she talks about the things that you do. She just put out a video that says if a woman wants to have a child, she will trick you into having that child. And if you're not careful as a man and you're promiscuous, you will end up with a 20-year hangover based on a child that you never wanted. You will support that woman. And so she says you should be very careful with who you choose because that could happen. And she's acknowledging these points. So I'm glad you are.
As masculists, we're trying to go further. We want the laws changed.
And I understand that. I think you have some points here. I do.
I see the rise of masculism spreading probably first through the universities. And the masculists are arguing that it's actually in feminists' self-interest to become more aware of masculinist ideas. Because if a feminist remains mono-conscious, that means she's only familiar with feminist ideas, then typically mono-conscious feminists tend to be rather feminazi bitchy. They're angry.
Term.
They're angry. Yeah.
That's your term. That got you banned on YouTube, probably.
Right. Yeah. Fine.
Probably did. Yeah.
They are angry at men.
Yeah.
Legitimately, because of all the ways that men oppress women, rape, sexual harassment, domestic violence, all those things. They're real.
They've had enough.
Don't deny that. But the other big three in the other direction, manslavery, divorce rape, forced fathering. They're far worse.
Wow. They're bad.
They're bad. Yeah.
It's hard to say which is worse. But I understand. But also, this is interesting because you said when you grew up, you loved the feminist movement because you wanted women that weren't oppressed necessarily or in this one role, and so you liked that. I think the same thing could happen with the masculism, where the women would say, I'm tired of these subservient men that just bow their heads all the time and don't do anything. Why don't we get our men back? And if it takes us changing some of these court things that have gone too far one way, just like maybe affirmative action went too far one way, I think you're right. What we need is a discussion with these two groups. And this MGTOW isn't healthy because these men go in this, they get into these forums and it's just they can kind of hate on women. And then the internet is great at creating these echo chambers, even within, say, a Twitterverse. And then you get people that don't talk. So I appreciate you bringing these issues up. And even though they're probably very unpopular.
Well, I can imagine, it depends on the time frame, but so I'm predicting and imagining in the next couple of years, in that sort of time frame, that there's going to be millions of verbally bitter confrontations between mono-conscious feminists and bi-conscious masculists. They've had both their feminist and their masculinist consciousness raised. So they see the oppression of men, of women, as a lesser form of oppression than vice versa. So these masculists, bi-conscious masculists, will see these mono-conscious feminists as rather hypocritical. Because these feminists think they have the right, given their knowledge of feminism, to attack men. Right. Whereas these masculists can see a bigger picture that, in fact, women are sort of oppressing men worse, the big three. And so these masculists will just harangue these women and attack them viciously until there's a real change. And that's happening now. I don't know if you've noticed, there are now increasing numbers of female masculists. Probably the best known one is Pearly, I don't know if you heard the name, Pearly Things. She gets millions of hits.
I think I've seen her speak.
She's young. She's only about mid-20s or so.
She's not the best, is she? But I have heard her speak.
But she gets the hits.
Yeah,
my God.
I have her speak. Although I think Sadia is probably right up there as well, because she is saying that women have to take ownership, and she's saying women have all of these ways that they can exploit their situation that's not okay. And so I think she has a good way of calling some of those people out as well, and it's kind of refreshing to hear. And she calls some men out on some things as well. Yeah. I think this is good. We have to talk about these things, and it's gone one way for sure.
And we, as masculists, we want the being political. We want the establishment of GEC, G-E-C, Gender Equality Committee, in the parliaments. And they would consist half of female feminists and half of male masculists, so that the gender issues of both sexes are dealt with equally, which is far from being the case today.
I agree with that. I just had a physicist in here, Lawrence Krauss, and he was talking about the staff at MIT, and he said now the top executives at MIT, it's like 70-something% women. And he just said, look, he said, for a body and a male student body in the university that's mostly men, and I went there, I was 70% men, he's just saying, you know what, is this because it's the competence, or is this because of a reverse discrimination way of putting it in? And he said, if that's the case, we have to have some talks about this, especially as an engineering university where you should look to real science and statistics. So we have to have these conversations. We have to push back on this. We have to try to find the equality. But it's hard pushing against these issues because they're polarized and they're woke. And also our Silicon Valley technology companies are very left-leaning, pro all of these kind of woke ideologies, and then they censor us. So
and if you're a masculist and you say negative things about women, even though they may be valid from your point of view, then from the monoconscious feminist viewpoint, this is just more misogyny. And so they react more negatively.
Yeah.
And so, but then the masculist doesn't tolerate that. He just sees this monoconscious feminist as a bigot, closed-minded, hypocritical, and so on. And so, real verbal violence between the two, until so many feminists get dumped. I argue as a masculist, it's in the self-interest of feminists to learn masculism so that they become bi-conscious.
Right.
Because that makes them more competitive compared to the monoconscious feminists in getting a man. Because as masculism spreads, these men will not tolerate a monoconscious feminist. They'll see that sort of woman as just, and they'll dump them.
Yeah.
And so it's in these monoconscious feminists' self-interest to become bi-conscious faster than their male partners, the significant men in their lives, before the men do. Because if they don't, if the men become bi-conscious faster than these women, well, then she risks losing the man because he'll become disgusted with her because of her.
Yes. All right, well, let's try to educate all these people. Let's try to have these conversations. Let's try to bring everyone up to the same level. And I appreciate you talking about these things.
Well, I'm very grateful you give me a forum because it's hard enough on the Cosmist stuff. But believe me, the masculine stuff, it's 10 times worse.
I believe you. Well, look, on London Real, we like to open our minds and listen to ideas, even if we don't agree with them. I've had many guests on this show that I don't agree with what they have to say. Sometimes it bothers me, but I always try to consider it, and sometimes I change my mind. And we believe, ultimately, in this concept of freedom of speech. Like, you need to be able to say this, and other people have the right to hear it. And again, for anybody who disagrees with me, you have to protect freedom of speech, especially when they're saying something you don't want to hear. Because any goofball can go for freedom of speech when they're saying something you want to hear. Freedom of speech is only relevant as a concept when it's something you don't want to hear. And so if you're saying things out there that women are hearing that bothers them, okay, all we want you to do is go back and examine your own thoughts and conclusions when it comes to that concept. Most people have never had their ideas challenged in their heads. So having someone come back and having a conversation, maybe I really wasn't a feminist. Maybe I would want to think about this. And that's what we're here to do. So I appreciate all your ideas, even though I guess not many of them are popular, including the Artilect War. But I really appreciate your thoughts on this. And a lot of people do, because you believe them. You're congruent and you thought deeply about them. So thank you. I hope you end up moving back to the UK so we can have more of these conversations in the future.
It's sort of on the cards.
Okay, good. How can people get a copy of the Artilect War, learn more about your research, follow you? You got a website, social media?
Probably. I mean, you don't have to pay for the book. You can read it for free. Simply go to my website. So just type in my name, Hugo de Garis, or maybe website or something on Google, and then you get it up, and then one of the tabs is books written, and click on it, and there it is for free. You don't have to pay for it.
He's even got a section of YouTube videos where he reads it to you.
Yes.
It was recorded a long time ago. I took a look at some of that.
And a very long section on masculism, if you're into that as well.
Got that as well. All right, perfect. The book is The Artilect War. Professor Hugo de Garis, thank you so much for this. We really appreciate it. I know these issues are a little dark, but everyone needs to think about them now. So I appreciate that. Let's go and maybe prevent the Gigadeath, and let's keep talking about this stuff.
Well, so thank you for giving me a forum.
My pleasure.
I'm very grateful.
My pleasure. People like hearing you, and I do too. All right? All the best, sir. Thank you.